16 of the witching hour. So it's a different frame today because I'm here, I'm Perri, this is Haleigh, and we have a very special guest. Yay. I don't think there could be a guest on this show that I'm more excited about than Erlingur.
Hi.
I feel like a lot of people out there might know who you are already just because I talk about Child Eater often. I mean, it's my only feature filmmaking experience, so it's like normally what I tap into when we're assessing a new story that we're covering. But Erlingur directed Child Eater. We went to film school together, and he also has a new film out right now called Rift that if you have not seen Rift, you need to check it out. It was on a whole bunch of top 10 horror lists, and I was so proud and happy, and it's great.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like it was unexpected, but yeah, it was really awesome.
Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? First, obviously, like say Icelandic Erlingur.
Okay, so my name, if you're in Iceland, you would pronounce my name Erlingur Thoroddsen. But here we usually just say Erlingur. Erlingur. I think that's easier for Americans to say. So yeah, I'm from Iceland, born and raised in Reykjavik. I guess like my kind of like my start with movies and with horror movies especially was I was always a big horror movie fan. Even before I was allowed to watch them. So like I would be like, in the video store back in Reykjavik, always gravitated towards the horror movie section just because those covers were much more interesting than anything else. And I would like look behind the covers and like look at the pictures and then just make up a movie in my head. A movie that's probably like a lot worse than what was actually going on like on the tape. And then my mom, she was also a big horror movie fan. So even though she wouldn't let me watch the movies, she would tell me the plots of the movies. So I remember like very specifically like having scenes from The Omen or from Carrie like in my head, even though I'd never seen a frame of the movies themselves. And I remember like watching them for the first time and being like, it wasn't so bad. Like it wasn't that scary, even though I'm now like obsessed with Carrie. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And I think like a part of it was the fact that I wasn't supposed to watch them. That made me that drew me to them. Yeah.
Now, it's interesting hearing some of that and thinking about the movies that you make now, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that I feel like, I don't know, like Stephen King, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
I can name a whole bunch of things that I feel like influence your style and your taste now, and I love seeing that in your work.
For sure, and like a lot of it, I think started super early. Like Stephen King, definitely. Like that was another thing. Like at the library, like as a kid, I was like one of those kids who like would spend a lot of time at the library, and was probably like through the video stores that I discovered like who Stephen King was, and then I would go to the library and see those books. And not be allowed to like take them like home because they were adult books, but I could still like read some of the pages like at the library. But yeah, Stephen King. And I remember Freddy Krueger. Like I think Freddy Krueger was definitely like the first thing that scared me as a kid. That I would like tell my friends stories about Freddy Krueger, and this is like without having seen the movies. And then like that obsession has not really gone anywhere. It's still there.
Robert Bowery has some real Freddy Krueger vibes.
For sure, yeah.
Robert Bowery is the villain of Child Eater.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of Child Eater came from like A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it kind of came from that love of like that 80s era of horror.
I'm curious, when you finally did get to see the movies that you had heard about, whose visual style really stuck out to you? Because Rift is such a beautiful film. Yeah,
well, I think that's actually very interesting because I think to begin with, like I was really drawn to, for example, like the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which are like kind of flashy and like have all these kind of surreal images. And for the longest time, I was very, very into those kinds of like kind of flashier style movies. I remember like being obsessed with The Cell, the Jennifer Lopez movie. And I think I kind of had to just go through that phase of like just being obsessed with what the camera can do and kind of what you can do when you unleash your imagination onto film, and then maybe like in the later years I've become more kind of withdrawn in that regard, and like now it's like Ingmar Bergman and like Tarkovsky, and I think those two. I mean, they have definitely like a visual flair of their own, but it's more kind of elegant in a way, maybe.
I feel like Haleigh should be aware of your Argento love.
Oh,
because
and Argento,
we're big into
Nice.
Suspiria right now.
Absolutely.
And I remember when we went to the Reykjavik Film Festival. Dracula 3D is maybe not the movie of his to be talking
Not
about.
the greatest
applying,
one. But it was, so we had like, when we did Child Eater, the short, it played at the Reykjavik Film Festival, International Film Festival, and Dario was the guest of honor with Dracula 3D. And I remember we went to see it, and it was what it was. But then we had to run out, like he was going to do a Q&A. And we missed it because we had to go to our own screening.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that was the reason why we missed it. Didn't we wind up seeing him talk, though, at some point?
Well, he had like a talk later.
Yeah.
That was like not connected to the screening.
Yeah. And we went to that, right?
Yes.
And
I have a picture of myself with it.
that trip is still the best trip I've ever been on.
Aw.
It really is something special. If you ever have the opportunity to go travel to another country and stay with good people who really want to you guys invited me into your home, and your mom cooked, and it was so nice and warm and loving. It's a place that I definitely want to go back to ASAP because you guys showed me the best time there.
Well, we loved having you, and you were always welcome. And Haleigh, you're always welcome as
thank
well.
you.
We should all just go to Iceland, have a little party. And
Why not?
Sold.
Yes.
Maybe we should do an episode of The Witching Hour
In Iceland.
from Iceland.
I
I'm into
support
it.
From
this
like a
fully.
secluded cabin or something, like the
Yeah.
Rift House.
I'm very into
can get you there.
haunted cabins out there.
I can make that happen.
Yeah, there's some super. I just remember like the drive when we did the tour for the geysers and everything. The drive out there, and there's so many just random houses out there that if you go out there and something happens to you, you're kind of screwed.
Oh yeah, there's all these abandoned places all over the place, and if you know anything about kind of how the towns and the cities in Iceland are built, it's all coastal. There's like nothing really inland, but you will have like some like farms and like a cabin here or there inland, but like there's absolutely nothing close by. So it's very easy to find like a location that is creepy and isolated, and yeah, you don't want to like be stuck there.
Here's a question that I feel like is asked very often because going to film school is a major commitment. It's major time commitment, financial,
Yes.
energy. It really does. If you ever go to a film school, just brace yourself because it is your life for X amount of years. So, one, why did you decide to go to the Columbia MFA program? And two, walking away from it, was it worth it?
Yeah, I think like if I answer the second question first, if it was worth it, I think yes, definitely. For me at least. The reason why I decided on that program, I always knew that I wanted to come to America to go to a film school, just because my kind of, especially back then, like my tastes in films were very kind of American centered, and I wanted to make movies here. And Iceland has a film school, but it's not like at a university level, I just felt like it wouldn't give me what I needed. And a friend of mine had actually, one of my best friends, he had actually started the program at Columbia, so that's how I knew of it. And he just spoke very highly of it, and I decided to apply. I applied to a couple of programs. But I got into that one, and like it's in New York. I wanted to come to New York, so like it kind of made sense in that way. And that program is very kind of writing based in a sense. Like they make you really focus on the stories you're telling, and not so much on the technical side.
Well, it's even reflected in the producing program. It's not a producing program. It's the creative producing program.
Exactly. And I thought for me, like I've always had like a very kind of, overactive visual imagination. So I kind of knew like I didn't really feel like I needed to be taught how things should look. But like maybe how to write them.
It's
that made more
incredible how
sense.
different our paths were. Because like as you're like, I didn't need to be told how everything looks. Have you ever seen my first directing exercise?
Wait, which one was that?
So you remember also at the end of the year when we would do like the worst of the year?
Yes.
Like it was up for one of the worst of the year. It was called Donut Showdown. And it was something like we had to do something without any dialogue. And I was in Ramin Barani's class and like, you know how tough Ramin is. And it was just like this most ridiculous thing about two people sitting at opposite ends of a table and having like a fork showdown to get the last donut. It is hands down one of the worst things in my life I have ever created. But, you know, it ended with Child Eater being my non-thesis film, so
exactly,
I'm fine with it.
I mean, I feel like film school is a lot about like getting that out of your system. Also, like getting the like just do they encourage you to just do whatever, and I think you need to do some like not amazing things before you hit your stride and like kind of figure out like what it is. Like this is my style and this is my thing.
Certainly ticked that box.
I'm curious for you guys both, like, since you went into different programs at the same school, how did you know which side of the filmmaking program you wanted to go into?
Well, I did the directing side of it. Perri did the producing side of it. I always kind of knew, like, from like a very early age, I knew I wanted to be involved in movies. And as a kid, I wanted to be an actor because that's all I knew. Like, I was like, oh, the actors make the movie.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah, like, but in my mind, it was because, like, the actors are, like, making the movie as they go. Like, they're creating the movie. I just didn't know any better. And then, like, once I figured out, no, actually somebody's, like, telling them or, like, directing them, and somebody wrote those lines, and somebody put the camera there for a reason, that became kind of the obsession. I kind of always knew that directing was something that I gravitated towards.
I feel like my reasoning is much less poetic than that. I just like making lists and then checking off things that I've done. And I don't know, that kind of organizational mindset just so suits being a producer. And I very quickly in that program realized, I think I directed a couple things that I'm kind of proud of. Like, I really liked my 3 to 5. That's like the first semester like culmination project. I was really proud of that. But I very quickly realized that I want to put my time and energy towards making somebody else's vision and story come true, because I don't know. We went over scripts and we've brainstormed ideas together, but what comes out of his head naturally by himself, like, I could never in a million years do that.
Did you both study film in undergrad?
No.
Okay.
I studied literature. That was because like I knew I wanted like a degree in something, and because I couldn't get a degree in filmmaking, literature kind of seemed like the natural other side, like
storytelling, right?
Storytelling, exactly. Yeah. And for like a brief moment in time, I was like, I'm just gonna be a writer. I'm just gonna be a novelist, or like write short stories. And I have like folders in my computer of stuff that no one will ever be allowed to read. But yeah, no, the filmmaking bug was too strong.
You know, it's funny. Recently, I did the junket for Ralph Breaks the Internet, and every once in a while, when I'm doing my research, I'll come across someone that I didn't know was in the program. And the co-director on that, Phil Johnston, I didn't know that. And not only did he graduate from our same film program, but he had the same track I did, where he got a BA in journalism, and it was just like having that mindset was and also he the second I said that, when we sat down, he started spitting out all these names, and I'm like, I miss all those people so much.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things that for me was very interesting, like about attending film school, like I came into it very insecure, because like I had done short films like on the side, at home, but not like, they weren't great, they were just a kind of, whatever equipment that I had at my disposal, whatever actors that weren't usually really actors that I had at my disposal. So I kind of like showed up, and a lot of people were like, oh, these people have like actually made like a feature, and these people have like worked on these big film sets. So I was like, very, very insecure about it. But then like I started learning there's also people that have not done anything, and Perri had not done a movie, and
absolutely nothing.
And like eventually, like after a couple of months or like a year or whatever, like everybody's kind of on even ground. But I remember that being kind of a thing when I started.
It's also a really cool program because there's 3 tracks: directing, screenwriting, and producing. But the first year they make everybody do everything, and
Yes.
it's just the way the whole program is structured. One forces you to all understand what each other are going through, but also creates this environment where you can't get through it without teaming up with other people, without getting them to work on your projects, without you giving your time to their projects. And I don't know, it was just like a really nice, close-knit community there.
Yeah, and they're very good at like in a different way from like the production side, but also like in the writing workshops, they are very good at like making people give each other helpful notes and like thoughtful feedback, which is something I think a lot of people have to learn. That I don't think that comes naturally for everybody. Yeah, that was one of the things that I really took, like one of the great things that I took away from that program. Great professors, great courses, but I also think the best thing to come out of that whole thing is just the other students like Perri that I met there, because like it's those people that have like really kind of been a part of my journey post school and like also in school, but like have kind of stuck with me and like I still work with or want to work with, and so. It's the people around you.
So talk a little bit about that post-school, like going from film school to getting child
to real life.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It was like sometimes I look back and I'm like, I don't know how any of it actually like happened. Some of it seems like a dream, or like there are so many moving parts that like if just one of them would have gone wrong or gone a different way, like everything like comes crashing. I think a lot of it is luck. And a lot of it is like perseverance. I think that is actually like the biggest thing. Just like if you believe in something and you really want to make it happen, you will make it happen. Like no matter how long it takes.
Well, we set it too. Like once you say the goal and you say you're going to do it, and especially I remember it being when we start putting dates on the calendar.
Yeah.
That's when it became a little more real.
When you start convincing other people, like, no, it's not just like at some point in the future, it's like February 20th is like the day we start shooting or whatever it is, you know.
How long was it?
April.
Between
finishing school and shooting? So we started shooting, April?
I graduated in May of 2013, and we started shooting in April of 2014.
Yeah, and I graduated at the same time. So.
We did graduate the same. The producing program was 3 years, and then writing, directing is 3 to 5?
Up to 5 years.
Wow.
But I was 1 year ahead of Perri, and I actually graduated like that October. But I was around for
You were at the ceremony,
I was at the
right? Yeah.
I
feel like we have pictures together at that.
Yeah, and we totally do.
And your
like
family was there.
And my family was there, yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. Like I said, like those years have like gone by in a blur. Like I can't believe it's been 5 years since
Isn't that
happened.
weird? Because Phil had asked me when I graduated the other day, and when I said 2013 and did the math, I'm like, wow, was it really that long ago? But I mean, I've been out here in LA for 2.5 years now. It really has been that long.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess it was just about a year from graduation to like actually when we started shooting the film, and like exactly a year like until we finished shooting the film.
I feel like we went up to Catskill. I want to say like April 8th for some reason, but I think it was even earlier than that. You know what's funny is I remember, I think the week before, the last work-related, like the last journalism-related thing I did was the Crimson Peak set visit.
Oh, cool.
Then I came back, and then we picked up, and we lived in Catskill, New York for a month.
Lived in a house. I still dream about that house.
I think about it all the time.
And I mean, like, yeah, I dream about it, not like I dream I want to go back to that house. It's more like it just shows up in my dreams. It was such a crazy time.
Like a kid's bed.
Oh, yeah, I was in a kid's bed. There was 3 of us in the same bedroom. Like, there was no, like, private accommodation for the director or anything like that. It was like everybody's just, like, here together. And I slept in a bed that one of the legs broke like a week and a half into shooting. And I was always just so exhausted, like each day, that I never did anything about it. So I slept like slanted for like a week and a half.
For a month, I slept in a sleeping bag on a cot. And then Luke and I think Alvaro, for the most part, there are 2 other producers that worked on the project, slept in like the bed in that room. And we were just like on top of each other.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give to anybody jumping into a feature shoot like that is the movie is of the utmost importance, but don't overlook the basic life essentials. I mean, even silly things like remembering to make sure the house had enough toilet paper, or like little things that you don't necessarily think are the most important thing in the moment. And also good food, good craft service, good catering. And two of Erlingur's friends from Iceland came to Catskill for the entirety of our shoot, and they were our caterers. And if it were not for Goody and Birna, I don't know what I would have done that entire month.
They were like basically the parents of this like big unwieldy family. They were like the mama bear and the papa bear, and they were just, I mean, they're like my best friends back home, and they were a big part of it, I think, like keeping everybody like fed and sane and alive during that shoot.
Group morale is a real thing. I mean, that's why I think that if I went into producing another feature tomorrow, I would put in as much time as I possibly could to not only make sure that the people that I'm surrounding myself with are really, really good at their job, but they're also good, positive people, because all you need is one bad seed on a set to completely taint that environment and that positivity and that drive that you need to power through a really long day and get good work done.
Yeah.
How long was the shoot?
It was, 19 days, I think?
Oh, okay.
We were up there, I think between that and then coming back to New Jersey, it was like a full month.
Yeah, like 19 shooting days,
Yeah.
and then with like, we were shooting 6 days a week, and then we showed up there a little bit early
Yeah.
to prep, and then we left a little bit later to kind of wrap things up. So yeah, it was probably like we were there definitely for like a whole month. For
I don't
sure.
want to make it seem like the shoot was filled with red flags, but I just got flashes of, like, there was only one injury on set, and I injured myself. I shut my finger in the house door of the main house, and it was like a big rickety door. And it was one of those things where, like, where your mind is just a couple steps ahead of you. So I just shut the door, and I left my hand like in the door. And then
You
I'm
were
also thinking about our
distracted
poor
and
box
busy.
truck. Yeah. I mean, there's another piece of advice is accidents happen and be prepared. You need to, there's a reason you need to have insurance certificates for all this stuff, because stuff happens. Even if you're being super responsible, you really never know in any given moment,
It's not
especially
like a
if you're on
stunt
the
went wrong
go.
or anything.
No?
No, we actually one of the things that we did make sure, like, we had a great stunt coordinator who kind of like walked us through all those
Drew
things.
Leary.
Drew Leary, and we had stunt performers also doing some of the fighting scenes, and we also just had like our cast was amazing. They were like very kind of gung ho about like everything, but we I think we were always very as much as we could, we made sure that people were safe, and because we're outside, we're in the dark, running around in the woods, so things can happen, but I think we did a pretty good job of making sure nothing bad happened.
I would say that was definitely the case. It's weird thinking back to all of that. It's like weird how when you start talking about it, how vividly you can remember like very, very specific nights.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted you to talk about, because we're constantly talking about it here, where whenever there's some sort of news story out there that says, oh my God, blah, blah, blah is having reshoots, it's the biggest deal, and everyone, it's just like doom and gloom. That project it's the end of the world for it. I highly disagree with that statement, just in general, because I know it's built into budgets, but also now from personal experience. So can you talk about the Child Eater reshoots?
Yeah, I can talk about that. For us, it wasn't really built into the, we basically, we kind of just ran out of time. And for a lot of different reasons, like the weather, for example, was never in our favor. It was always raining or something, or snowing when we were supposed to be outside. And
Freezing.
And also like excruciatingly cold. But basically, so what happened was we didn't, like at the end of those 19 days, we didn't quite have everything that we needed from the script. So we knew that we needed to come back. But the good thing, and like for me, like I remember being like, that is awful. Like, we don't have it. We don't have a full film. Like I was, pretty upset about it. But
Understandably.
yeah, because like, you know, then you get excited about like going to edit it, but like, oh, but this
Missing
moment
a
is
big piece.
missing, and
It felt like a failure as a producer also, just like having scheduled out the whole thing and like you didn't schedule enough time or you couldn't, you know, restructure well enough to fit that in.
Mm-hmm.
But shedding that mindset was probably one of the best things I think we did.
and also and I think like, you know, it was a lot of different things played into that. You know, it was for everybody, you know, it was our first movie, so we were like kind of learning as we went along. So, you know, I don't think it wasn't anybody's real fault, you know, like it just, you know, the situations came up that made it happen that we just couldn't finish.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so like you go into the editing room, you start cutting at least what you have. And the good thing about knowing that you're going to come back to shoot is that like, oh, you know, maybe another shot here would be good, like a pickup insert here. So like I was able to kind of make a little list of other things that made sense to pick up and also refine what was missing, like the stuff that we knew that we needed to do. Like I was able to kind of rewrite that so it made sense with the cut that we already had.
Mm-hmm.
So so it was definitely helpful for sure to have a little time in between and come back.
Our reshoots were 3 full days and they were the most efficient days we had the entire time.
They were probably like the best shooting days of the whole, you know, I think everything just went so smooth and great. And
It really did.
yeah.
Do you keep anything from the film? Like, do you still have anything?
I have.
I know I have a whole shed full of things, but the only thing I have in my apartment now is the greatest dad mug.
Oh, yeah,
World's
yeah, yeah.
greatest dad mug.
I have, there's like a doll that is like put into a river in the beginning.
Yes.
And it also shows up a little bit later. I have that. And I also have like all the, the missing children news articles that are on the wall. I have a folder full of them. And I definitely have a bunch of stuff like somewhere hidden away.
My poor parents are still storing every single
Oh,
child.
gosh.
They have like a full thing of police uniforms, I think.
Yeah, with like
Nice.
fake blood covered.
Hey, you'll never know when you'll need those.
Exactly.
You really don't.
So you guys finish Child Eater, you take it to festivals. How does Rift become your second film? Why do you return home to make it?
Well, so this is an interesting story. So, so while we were kind of waiting, we finished Child Eater. Basically, it was like fully edited. It was we had basically done everything, but it needed to be sound mixed and it needed some visual effects. And we had made a really, really great deal with this post-production company in New York, and they we're basically like we were kind of doing it all together. We didn't really, you know, they didn't charge us much. And they outsourced some of those things, the sound mix and the VFX. But that kind of basically meant because we weren't paying a lot, like we weren't necessarily like the highest on the priority list. So the post-production stuff took, I think, quite a lot longer than any one of us expected. And for me, I was like, oh my God, like the movie's never going to be finished. This is never going to come out. And then at the same time that was happening, I kind of had a breakup of my own. And I had a situation where I had to leave New York to go to Iceland for a few months. And this was all kind of happening at the same time. And so I go back to Iceland, like tail between my legs. Like the movie that I already shot, like isn't finished. I can't tell anybody when it's going to be finished. Like I have this breakup, and now I'm back in Iceland with like nothing to show for what I've been doing. And I was just like, okay, I just need to do something. So I started writing. I had an idea about like a film, like a horror movie that I had initially intended to be shot in America, about 2 people in a cabin and like things going wrong. And then I was like, what if it's 2 guys, and what if they were a couple but they broke up and now they're like have to like deal with the fallout of their relationship, of their breakup, in this like isolated place, which was like all I was thinking about like all the time at the time. So writing the script was like just kind of like a therapy, like a prolonged therapy session for me. And certain things kind of clicked. Like I came to Iceland, I told my family like this is the project that I'm going to be writing now. And my family was like, oh, you know, if you're looking for a cabin, there's this cabin that we stayed in like a few weeks ago up in this peninsula in the middle of nowhere, which also has like weird ties to my mother's side of the family. So like they start telling me about that place, and I'm like, oh my God, this sounds literally exactly what I'm like imagining in my head. And they show me pictures, and then I went to like scout it, and it was just like, this is the place, like, you know, this is literally like the perfect setting for this story. And then I kind of rewrote the script a little bit to fit the place a little bit better. And that process took like from me starting to write it and until, which was like October 2015, until we shot it, which was March 2016, was not a long time. So that I kind of willed it into existence a little bit. I kind of just like told people I was doing it, got a producer involved in Iceland, you know, got my amazing DP who shot Child Eater with us. He was like, I'll come to Iceland and shoot it. And then, you know, my sister did the costumes. My best friend did the production design. You know, it was very like, it was kind of, you know, I know these people. I know that they're available. This is how many days we have. We're just going to go do it. Mm-hmm. And that's how it kind of, that's like the very short version of the story, how it came to be.
That's incredible.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's like the lightning strike story where someone wants to go and make a movie and you do it like that with all the right people, just super, super low budget, minimalist style. And, you know, you wind up with a really good movie where you can feel your passion for the story oozing through the screen. Mm-hmm. And it definitely caught on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's like been the kind of most rewarding thing of all of it is like how like I never really, I mean, of course I wanted it to like travel beyond Iceland and like, you know, be successful, but I never really imagined it would necessarily. Like that was more like a bonus. And then, yeah, it just started playing all these festivals and it kind of got this, it was kind of like a rolling snowball. Like, you know, people started like talking about it. And yeah, like you said, like it ended up on a bunch of like best of the year lists. And
I met you at Fantastic Fest where you got in, which is amazing.
Which was like one of the best festivals like I've ever been at.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've ever had so many drinks in the span of 9 days.
Sounds like what you're supposed to do at Fantastic Fest.
Yeah, we don't talk about
It's a very professional event.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of the vibe of most horror festivals,
yes.
I feel like, out there. It's like community drinking and watching horror together.
And I would just say most festivals. I feel like every festival, like I went to a lot of festivals last year, and that's the kind of like the threat that they have in common is like a lot of parties, a lot of drinking.
Drink to survive.
Drink to survive. Drink to like, you know, take off the jet lag. Most people are like coming in, like staying for 2 nights and flying to the next one. And so, yeah, there's a lot of trying to keep yourself awake and network, and the free booze helps a lot.
So Child Eater and Rift are out there right now.
Yes.
And they have paved the way to wonderful things for you, one of which was recently announced that you can talk about now. So do you want to tell everybody what it is?
Yeah, now I can talk about it. So one of the cool things that started happening around the time that I moved to LA was some people were interested in remaking Rift for America. And that would like, you know, was a process to like kind of get it where it is now. And so basically what we announced is that Orion Pictures, which is now owned by MGM, they are going to produce the American version of Rift, and I'm writing it, so I still get to kind of be a little bit involved, which is very exciting.
Okay, so 2 follow-ups there, because this is another thing we talk about on Collider all the time, and oftentimes it's everybody applauding original ideas, and then whenever you hear about something being remade, everyone's like, why are you remaking it? It just came out. Why don't you make something original? So what is it about the opportunity to essentially remake your movie that you think has a whole lot of potential?
Well, for me, it's all about just kind of like getting the film out there. You know, even though Rift was, you know, fairly successful, you know, especially considering how small it was initially, you know, most people have not seen it. So like for me, like anything that kind of raises awareness of the movie, whether it's the new version or the version that's already been made. I think that's like what I just want everybody to see it, so that's exciting to me. The other thing that is excited to me is, as a creator, like it's very hard for me to look back at the stuff that I've done and be like 100% satisfied. There's always something I want to fix. So this is a really fun exercise in like fixing my own mistakes or like making things that like have bothered me like better. It's kind of wild to get that opportunity, and but like I said, like it was a very personal, like the whole script came from a very kind of personal and dark place in my life. So I didn't want to just like hand it off to anybody. So I'm very happy that like we ended up working out something where I could be involved.
It's weird thinking about you having a dark place. Like I know all these creepy ideas come from your head, but I think most of the horror filmmakers I've met out there are just like the kindest, warmest, most loving people that just happen to have a whole lot of monsters up there.
It's true for a lot of the fans too. Like when you go to conventions or the festivals,
Yeah.
it's just the loveliest community of weirdos.
The community is definitely one of the best parts about being a horror fan.
I think we get so much of our kind of like we get so much of our tensions and kind of our like, because we all have these dark things, impulses and stuff within us. And I think, the people who are into horror and the people who are into kind of alternative whatever things, I think they more kind of freely get those things out, whereas like other people might kind of hold them in. And they have other outlets to get them in, whether it's like doing a sport or doing something else. But like I think it's just like a natural thing to get those emotions out, and I think horror is a very safe place to do that.
So how are you feeling about horror 2018? What's on your radar? What's like the general trend that you're really liking right now?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things I think in the last just few years is that I don't think there's like a big trend, like other than I think like horror is so all over the place in a fun way. I feel like there's a trend with like there are these smaller indie movies that have certain maybe elements in common, but I think that's more to do with like their size and their budgets and maybe like kind of a commonality in like the people who make them. And then, you have the bigger budget movies that are, I guess, like, maybe we're getting into the, the whole kind of Conjuring universe stuff. Like those films definitely have, a similar feel and a look. But in general, I feel like it's a very I feel like nobody really knows what's going to be the next big horror thing, which is exciting because like everything's kind of up for grabs.
It's so refreshing to hear a take like that.
It's nice.
I just feel like we've often been like, oh, Halloween's successful, so get ready for every single thing to be remade or rebooted.
That's going to happen.
It's gonna happen, but I guess what I'm saying is it's been a little while since I've actually taken a step back and looked at it overall rather than these specific things that I know are paving the way to XYZ.
Exactly. It's like I feel like it's so easy to like look back and be like, oh, that was like our J-horror era, or that was like the torture porn era and the Scream, the teenage like whatever, like all the movies that came in the wake of Scream. But I don't know what's the most recent kind of I guess the Conjuring type of film is kind of the last big kind of wave.
This year feels like the year of just people taking horror seriously. Like all the films are they give you a lot of credit. Maybe not like The Nun necessarily, but Hereditary, Annihilation, Suspiria.
Yes.
They're like very artfully made films that take themselves seriously and ask you to keep up with them.
Absolutely.
Well, even thinking about our recent conversations about Hill House and Channel Zero, it also seems to me the year where horror and the scares is rooted in very fully realized characters going on personal journeys. It's not scaring for the sake of scaring. It's to continue their story or to bring something out about them.
Yeah.
A lot of parenting stuff this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's the year of horrifying parenting.
Exactly, and like deep-seated trauma.
Yeah.
Like I think like I just finished The Haunting of Hill House, and I like it's so good. I'm like I can't even.
I'm so excited you watched it.
I'm always that guy that like if things are hyped up, I go into them like I'll be the judge of that. Like I
We'll
don't know,
see,
we'll see
guys.
about that.
Yeah.
So I watched like the first couple of Hill House episodes. Like,
Had you watched it at the beer festival?
I think I had watched 2 episodes.
Okay.
And I was still kind of like, I don't know. But like by the end of it, I was like crying for the last 30 minutes straight. And I was just like, it's so well written. Like the characters are so interesting, and the scenes between them, I'm just like, oh, it's like kind of amazing. I'm like looking forward to watching it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Flanagan's going on one heck of a journey. It's funny too, because remember when Child Eater the Short was at South by Southwest? I believe that was the year that Oculus premiered there. And that was my first encounter with Mike Flanagan. My first opportunity to applaud him.
I encourage you guys to revisit Oculus and realize that it's the exact same story as Hill House.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
I've read a couple of things about that.
Well, I was always a big fan of Oculus. I know it's people have mixed feelings on it, but I think what he is so good at is kind of bringing like the 2 separate time periods alive in a way that feels very like organic.
Yeah.
Like it never feels forced. It just always felt like a natural progression, and how one informs the other. It's I think he's just a very kind of, I won't say underrated writer, because I think people are starting to kind of see it now.
Yeah.
But I think he is a fantastic writer, and his writing partner, I think, who's worked with him, I can't remember his name, but has worked with him quite a bit.
So you're hopeful about Dr. Sleep?
Well, I haven't read the book yet, so.
Okay, wait. They need a little backstory here. So everybody knows how I've been doing my Stephen King deep dive since it came out, but I think every single year I knew you in film school, he kept giving me Stephen King books, and I would be like, I'll read it, and then it would go in like a drawer somewhere, and I wouldn't give it back to you for like a year or a couple months later or whatever, and I would never read it, and now all of a sudden I'm addicted. And I can't believe you haven't read that. I remember when that book came out and you had to go buy it.
I know. It's like I have so many books that I've bought but not read. And like I had this thing, and you'll probably reach that point because you're burning through Stephen King. But I felt like I had only read Stephen King. Like all the books that I was reading were Stephen King for such a long time that I was like, I need to take a break.
That's where I'm at right now.
I need to read something else now. So I still haven't caught up with like a lot of his later books.
That's how I was going to ask, because I grew up reading him, and I find that I'm great at a Stephen King conversation unless it came out like in the last 5 years, and then I'm just lost.
It's the same for me. There's like a couple of them that I've read, like of the newer ones, but like I think post. I think not Dreamcatcher was like, I think I read stuff after Dreamcatcher, but
I think I kept up with almost everything through like maybe Bag of Bones, somewhere in that era.
Yeah.
So that's way longer than 5 years ago. I just am in denial of how old I am.
Yeah, we don't need to go there, how old we are.
I told you I started the Dark Half, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know you're really into that.
The Dark Half.
I just got to the more brutal parts of the book, and I think the way I described it last was like, it's a nasty story there.
Yes. Well, I mean, he's just the master of taking, like, why didn't I think of that? You know, like, his concepts are, like, so, like, you know, like the high concept of just, like, it's like this and this, you know?
And most things out there that find a good high concept, they'll just coast on the high concept. He goes so far out of his way to make sure you flesh out every single character that you essentially know their entire life history, plus the history of the town they live in.
Exactly.
Every single book that I read, it astounds me more and more how exceptional he is at world building.
So what's the table's personal favorite King book?
Well, I think I'm still with it.
Okay.
I think it's my favorite, but I will say the only Stephen King book that I am just even the slightest bit lukewarm on that I've read so far is Salem's Lot. That's the only one that I've read that I wasn't immediately just taken by and sad when it was over.
So I do want to clarify, I got my eras wrong. It wasn't Bag of Bones, it was Lisey's story and Under the Dome. That was sort of when I tapped out. But neither of those are my favorites.
Yes.
It is very high up there. The Stand is very high up there, and Pet Sematary. They're all kind of locked in a 3-way fight for number one.
Okay. And I would. Yeah, for me, it is like I think that's the that was like also one of those things that I remember. Like my uncle had the paperback with where like it's like the claw coming out of the sewer on the cover. And this is like before, like I could maybe read a little bit of English, but like not really. And I would like take that book and just like look at pages. So like I'd read like things in it long before I actually read the whole book, and it like. There was something about it that just really creeped me out.
Can you tell everyone how you learned English? I always found that so fascinating.
So in Iceland, like we basically like everything is if it's in English, we just subtitle it, or if it's in another language, we subtitle it. And most of the stuff that we watch on TV is in English. And I basically just like I was a TV kid. Like I would just like I didn't want to go out and play. I just want to watch TV. So I kind of taught myself English just by reading subtitles.
That's great.
Yeah.
I hear that that's like a really good way to learn another language. I mean, I'm sure it's harder when you're not a child brain that's all active and.
Yeah, and I think like you know it wasn't something that I was trying to do. It just kind of it happens over a long period of time. But yeah, that's basically kind of how it happened.
That's great. I'm just going to watch French movies from now on and try to like finally become fluent.
Yes.
I feel like that ship has sailed for me.
Never.
I've tried so hard for so many
never
years.
Too late to learn
That's
piano
what I mean
or
about
learn
that
a language.
child brain.
It feels like it is, though. I studied Hebrew in college for 5 whole semesters, and it was just like in one ear, out the other.
That's me with French. Like I can barely passably get around if I need to, but just it's embarrassing how long I spent on it.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Switzerland for a year, so I learned like German, but like a mix of the Swiss German and the High German, and I should be so much better at it than I am, but it's kind of I'm also embarrassed.
You've got us beat on language count.
He's got us
far.
beat on language count. And another thing that Iceland has the United States especially beat on is the best creepy local legends. Like the fact that I grew up with happy things like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy devastates me now because you had such like a rich childhood filled with all this sinister fairy tale like magic.
Yeah, like it's so funny like when you tell people who are not from Iceland or like not from Scandinavia, I guess, like our like Christmas legends and like the stuff that they tell us when we're like babies, like it's like basically like we don't have one Santa Claus, we have 13, and they're like bad men. And their names, they're all called names after like what they do. So like one is like spoon licker, and one is like door slammer. One is like the creepiest one is like the one who comes last, and he is called like candle snatcher, and basically like he will come and steal your candle and like blow out your candle.
They sound like terrible house guests, all of them.
Exactly, yeah. So and that was the thing, like you would to ward them off, you would like put a shoe at your door or in your window to give them like scraps of food or whatever. And then they wouldn't have to come inside. So we still do that. Like we put like kids before they go to sleep, they put like a shoe in their window with like something in it. Well, no, actually, they don't put anything in it. Now the legend is like they will give you a present. But like the original thing was like you would leave something for them. And their mother is a gigantic troll woman. Her name is Garila, and she will like come to. She'll walk down from her mountain where she lives in a cave and take all the bad children into a bag, take them back up, and then like put them into a stew and eat them.
You know what I just remembered? So I was so taken by the Grilla story when I was in Iceland. That was one of the only little souvenir things I brought home, and I was just thinking about it. So it's still in my parents' house, and I know exactly
statue?
where the statue is there. I know it's there. Every single time when I go home, it has been put in a dresser drawer. I swear. So it's never where I left it. It's always in the dresser drawer. And then I put it back, and the next time I come home, it's always put away again.
I thought you were gonna say like every single time you come home, it's like moved to somewhere else, and I'm like, it's her
I wish.
She's moving herself.
Have you ever had any like supernatural experiences like that? Because we just recently had like a witchy episode. Mark Riley is famous in The Office for crazy things happening to him in the middle of the night.
I don't know if I've had like I'm very open. Like I'm a big believer in everything. Like I believe in like whether it's like ghosts or like hidden people, or and that's another Icelandic
Love
legend.
the hidden
The people, or aliens, or I'll buy all of it. Like sometimes I'm like I won't believe every single story that I hear, but I'm very open to. I'm just like so amused and entertained by them, and I just like want to keep that option open. But I don't think I have. I've like the weirdest thing that happened to me was like once I just woke up and I just felt like there was something bad like with me, like something like bad in the room, and it was just like a very like I just woke up and I like that's all I could think, like there's something really bad here with me. But I never saw anything, and then like the feeling just kind of.
Could you move when that happened?
That's the thing. I keep trying to remember because I know about the what's it called?
Yeah, it's in Hill House as well. Yeah,
yes.
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis. I'm not sure if it was that because like I feel like I could move, but at the same time I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
But it only happened that one time, so.
Yeah.
Something really crazy happened to me the other night. You want to hear about that?
Yes.
Sure.
There was power surge in my apartment, and I woke up at like 1 o'clock in the morning. My printer was printing something.
Oh.
Ghosts.
I wanted to get up out of bed and look at the printer and see like a creepy message, and it was just like the printer alignment page, and my Alexa was stuck on, so I knew it was just a power surge. But I don't know. To have a quick scare was fun for a change.
Now I just remembered one thing that happened. And this is like when I was a kid. This is when I used to live. I think I took you to my old town.
Yeah.
Like by the beach, or like we call it beach, but it's like nothing.
It's like where like
beach.
the Rock Road was, and we took pictures there.
Yes, exactly. So it's by the ocean. And it's like another peninsula basically. It's like basically like I how to explain it is like this is the place where like all the leftover winds in the world, they come and join, and because it's always windy and it's always cold there. And I just remember like once we were living in a house and I had just moved to a bedroom. I had like shared a room with my brother, and I was old enough to like have my own bedroom, but the bedroom that I had was like away from all the other bedrooms. So it was like by the front door, and everybody else's room was like at the back of the house. And I just remember like waking up and hearing like sound, and we had like a chair in the living room that like made that kind of screechy sound. If you like, it's like one of those IKEA chairs that like has like a soft back, so you can like kind of rock in it. And I just remember hearing the sound over and over again, and finally standing up and like going to check on it. And I go into the living room, and there was nobody there, and the chair wasn't rocking anymore. But I'm like, I swear that was the sound. Like it was the sound from the chair.
I love hearing people's scary stories.
I have the opposite brain from you. My mind's always like wind. Like,
yeah.
It's not that I don't hardline believe in any of it, but my brain will always go to the reasonable answer first.
Yeah. I think I'm caught in the middle. There's going to be, just like the printer thing, there's a split second where I'm like, there's going to be a creepy message. Right. And I'm like, no, I know, it's just a power surge.
So you're the Scully.
Yes.
I'm the Mulder, for sure.
I don't know what the heck I am.
You're one of the three, the lone gunmen, right?
Yes.
Is that what they're called?
Fine by me. Yeah. As we wind this down here, I guess what's kind of become a little bit of a tradition now, or as of the last couple of weeks on the show, is there anything in particular you're watching, you're reading, or anything within the genre right now that you want to share with all of our listeners?
Yeah, so I mean, I did mention Hill House, which I love, and if people haven't watched, I mean, you've talked about it extensively.
Oh,
so
we can talk about it more.
I feel like your listeners,
welcome.
They probably have all watched it by now. And another thing that I know you've talked about, which I adored, was Suspiria, the new Suspiria. I think it might be my favorite film of the year.
Me too.
And what else well, there's a book that I want to recommend that is available if you buy it through like Amazon.co.uk, like the British Amazon. I don't think it's been published in America yet, but if you want to read it in English, it's available at the British Amazon. It's called Blood Cruise. It is by a Swedish author.
Okay.
And it is basically, so there's like a ferry between Sweden and Finland. that kind of just goes back and forth, and it's kind of a party ferry. People get like drunk. And it's basically about like one of the trips that ferry takes, and there might be a pair of vampires on board, and what happens when they get hungry.
This sounds right up my alley.
I just Googled it, and the first thing that comes up is Blood Cruise, a thrilling summer chiller from the new Stephen King.
Exactly, yeah. His name is
like
Mats Strandberg, and he's a Swedish author, and maybe the book will come out. I don't know the details, but I know right now it is definitely available in English, like in the UK. So
I want to check that out.
Yeah.
As though my reading list isn't long enough.
Sure,
but
yeah, my shame library is pretty big. You talk about the books you buy and never read.
It's so hard. And then like I have no time, like even the books that I am reading, I have no time to I have like 4 books that I'm like, quarter into this one, halfway into this one, and
I'm kind of like that, but I actually get through it. It's like, how you get 3 credits on Audible every cycle. So I'll buy up all 3 right away, and I'll just like leave them there because I don't like to ever stop, because it's almost like a security blanket in the morning and at night when I get ready for the day and when I'm getting ready to go to bed. I need to have that. I need to have a story being read to me. And once one's over, I got to go right into the next.
I feel like and I've told you this, but like I really need to try audiobooks, because I think I would be better. Like I would go through them quicker, because I've become so obsessed with podcasts that I think this would be like a natural progression from podcasts to audiobooks.
I highly recommend it.
I'd be curious to hear about your experience. For me, like I don't process visual or audio as well as I do visuals. So like I don't see books in my head the way that I do when I read them, when I hear them.
That's kind of what I've been afraid of. Like I'm kind of nervous about, like, it doesn't seem like it will work, but because I'm always
for some
listening.
people it works great.
You've got to find the right. Oh, I'm still so sorry. You've got to find the right place and activity.
Yeah.
Like I find the best opportunity for me to listen and be so fully immersed and just be picturing it is in particular when I run, but on a track. Like if I'm just in a loop and I'm in the middle of a really good book, I mean, I could run double the mileage if I really like that story.
I just don't see it in my head like I do when I read it. It's very frustrating. I would like it to work for me, but it just feels like listening to words. It doesn't feel like being in the story. And I'm mad at my brain. Like, sort that shit out. I'm busy. I need audiobooks.
Well, I got the opposite problem. I'm such a slow reader that, like, I'll be reading, but I'll get frustrated with myself, so I don't like to read then.
You know, I'm envious, though, because you can listen to audiobooks on, like, double speed, and in a town like Los Angeles, that's just about right.
That does help. Yeah. That does help. We have to wrap this up, but this was such a pleasure. Erlingur, thank you for
great. I feel like time just like flew away.
I know. I feel like, I don't know, in the coming months we have to do like a follow-up episode or something, just especially as this new riff develops. We obviously would love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell everybody, though, where they could find both Rift and Child Eater if they want to check them out.
Yeah, so you can find they're both on Amazon Prime, for example. They're also on iTunes if you don't have Amazon Prime. Rift is on Shudder. If you have Shudder, and also some of my shorts, including Child Eater, the short, is also on Shudder. So
are they really?
Yeah,
I'll have to check those out.
So yeah, if you just if you find Rift and click on my name, you can see all the other things.
I'm a Shudder subscriber, so maybe I'll rewatch all this stuff.
Make a night out of it, a little Erlingur marathon. And if you Google them, they're probably available on some other platforms as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I highly recommend checking all of that out, obviously. We got to wrap this up. So, Haleigh, where can everyone find you on the internet?
You can find me at Haleigh Fouch on Twitter and Haystack McGroovy on Instagram.
I just hardcore made eye contact with Zac Efron in that blonde wig, and I'm so happy it happened at the end of the episode because I would have been distracted. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PNemroff. As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your horror-loving friends. You have officially survived the witching hour.